Welcome to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, where you can hear your favorite performers talk about how they got started, their careers, and everything in between. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify at Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, and on my main Broadway account at Broadway_Corner on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. I am so happy you are here, and I totally thought we were done with the Maybe Happy Ending Standby series when we finished the interview with Steven, because it was the four of them, but then they cast the incredible Claire, who is the only one named Claire playing Claire. It's Claire Kwon. Hi Claire, how are you?
Hey,
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm good. It's snowing outside. I don't know what New York is like, but we have
It,
a
it
big storm, so
it has been blizzarding. It started kind of blizzarding last night, and
um,
it took a second from being like, it's so pretty, and now I'm like, okay, it was a lot.
you're like, I don't want to go outside in that, but you know what? It's all right.
Exactly. Exactly.
We've lived here for a little bit, so we'll make it through. But anyway, I'll read a little bit about you. So, Claire Kwan joined the cast of Maybe Happy Ending this year as a vacation standby for Claire. She was also in the original cast of Almost Famous on Broadway as a swing and was most recently performing off-Broadway in Teeth. And she is also a Northwestern University graduate. So, that's a little bit about you. You've done so much in what feels like a very short amount of time. And so impressive. But how is your 2025 going so far, just to start off?
Ooh, it's really going so well. I feel very blessed. I feel very lucky to have joined this cast. I think it's just such a wonderful building. Dare I say, one of the best on Broadway. Everyone is so kind, and like I love this story and the show above all, but I feel so incredibly lucky to be surrounded by such amazing, talented, and kind people. So they've really held me through this beginning of 2025. That has been really, really awesome. So yeah, and obviously so grateful for Teeth, and I was able to kind of do that until the very beginning of January. So it
Mhm.
was a beautiful transition,
Yeah.
unexpected, surprising. It was all the things. So I'm having a great time.
Yeah, and I mean, every actor's dream to have something lined up right after, one project comes to a close. But, before we get into all the maybe happy ending of it all, let's just talk about you a little bit. So, can you talk a little bit about like your background, kind of where you grew up, and like how you discovered theater?
hmm Yeah, so I grew up in Jersey. I live kind of so I grew up in Bergen County, which is North Jersey, and it was like I grew up in a place called Glen Rock, which is a small suburb. And I started doing theater at a very young age. I was actually really shy, but my mom plays piano, and so I would sing with her, and she would play and accompany me, and I loved to sing. But as a kid, I was like a pretty shy kid, and then I had this best friend. Her name was Frankie, and we kind of just became bonded at the hip. And she loved Broadway musicals. And she was also just so exuberant and kind of more extroverted than I was growing up. And then we did our first musical together, which was The Wizard of Oz at the YMCA, and kind of bit the theater bug, got bit. Um, and I just continued to do that when I was younger. And I just loved it. It just felt so magical all the time. And I, of course, like grew up with High School Musical and Glee. So that definitely influenced my love for musicals. And I actually kind of stopped doing like auditioning and things like that in high school because I wanted to like focus on school, focus on my academics, and I wasn't sure if I really wanted to even go into, theater or acting professionally. Um, and to be honest, as an Asian American artist, that was something I struggled with. My family is, they are so supportive and so loving and kind of everything I do. But at the same time, there is a pressure of wanting to do something that, is feels like it has a reputation or feels like it would make your family proud. Um, and theater was just something that was kind of unreachable as when I was younger. I didn't know anyone who was like a family member in the industry. Like it wasn't a thing that was even a possibility to me in my head, even though I loved doing it and I continued to do it. And then in high school, Hamilton came out in 2016, you
Yeah.
know, and I think that for me really changed the game mentally because I saw Asian people, doing shows that were not just Miss Saigon and King and I. And that's the thing is that like those shows are amazing, and the actors who have built up that history and like represented Asian Americans in theater, like that is so. I just bow down to that and respect that so much. But at the same time, as a young person wanting to do cool things and wanting to, be a part of representing Asian Americans as not just like the stereotypes that we often see, I think it felt very limiting. It felt like I had a wonderful foundation to have those like amazing shows, but at the same time, like it's such a limiting view of the community. Like it feels like great if you're Asian American, like you can only audition for Miss Saigon or King and I, that one tour that they're doing. Like so it always felt a little bit stifling in that way. And then when Hamilton came out, I feel like it did kind of break open the doors in the sense that there were so many people who did not look like the mainstream who were suddenly being cast in these incredible, shows. And the fact that it also entered into the mainstream, like it broke through just musical theater as a genre. It was like it was hip hop and it was pop and it was, they were performing at the White House, like all of this kind of frenzy that felt really exciting and kind of called to my sense of like purpose outside of just performing because that like wasn't the only thing I was interested in.
Mm.
um that felt really special, and I think that changed in my brain what I felt like I could do and what I felt like was possible in the industry. um yeah, sorry that I'm like going on this huge spiel.
It's great, love it.
Yeah, but these are the things I think about. But yeah, and so I think that from then on and kind of inspiring my career as it is now, I'm always interested in doing new things, right? Like what is important to say, and cool people making cool art, um, some things that will make people respond and will make people think.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's just something I've always enjoyed, not just of theater, but just like of media, of entertainment, of anything going on in our world, like things that will connect you to bigger ideas and challenge you. Um, I think those are the things that I am always drawn to. And I feel like I've been lucky that I've been able to like explore a lot of those pieces of art thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I'm talking
No,
so
you're
much.
good. No,
Please,
I mean, I
please.
gotta say, like, hearing you right now, it's almost like hearing, not hearing a mirror, that's not a thing. But like,
Yeah.
it's like you are saying so many of the things that I personally believe in as well. And it's just, it's always so nice, like, when you meet people who are like on the, almost on the same wavelength as you.
100%.
And I mean, I was in like I'm a couple years younger than you, I think. So I was like in middle school, I guess, when Hamilton came out, and
Mhm.
is I would say what got me into theater. I mean, I grew up seeing theater, but I didn't really care until like Hamilton really changed the game
Mhm.
for everyone. Um,
Right.
and just like thinking again about all those things, all the pressures that we face as Asian people are a lot, and like the thing about representation is it starts when you're really little And then it
Hmm.
affects you all the way until, you're an adult, whether you see it or you don't see it. It's like you just
Totally.
have to know that you have that ability in the first place. And luckily, you and I are so lucky that we did feel that and
Hmm.
felt the strong urge to want to pursue this in the first place.
Hmm.
But I think it's, again, a testament to like wanting to have those conversations still, just to keep continuing to like shift the curve more and more.
Totally.
Yeah, that everything you said was just so great. And I was like, she sounds like what I like to say all the time when I'm talking about constantly.
Totally,
But,
totally.
it is so important to continue to have these conversations and wanting to just like do something with the art instead of just having it be something fun. It's like, make sure that it's really saying something with a message. I think maybe Happy Ending is a great, example of that. Darren Chris is always talking about kind of like the real story and then, the real meaning behind it and just how deep
Mm.
it is
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
how impactful the show can be. But now that we're talking about maybe Happy Ending, can you talk about what your audition process was like? Like, when did you hear that there was like maybe some, kind of hint of needing a vacation standby, and you were obviously doing teeth at the time, I think. So, what was that whole story?
Yeah, so mine was quite a unique story. It's sometimes weird how it happens in this way. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to, I think I'm allowed to talk about it, but I read the script a year ago. I was in California for a different contract, and I remember reading it in the airport on my way to this other place. And I was like crying in the airport. Like I just loved the story. I fell in love with it. It is a like American musical. They wrote an English version, also a Korean version. So it's not like Korean American, but it is kind of Korean American. There are definitely elements of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, we always say like it's not an Asian show, but there are definitely Asian elements to it.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, but I felt just so seen by it. It spoke to me emotionally in the place where I was at that time. And uh, I think I was just so drawn to how it felt so clear and yet so engaged with all of these huge topics and themes about life and death, mortality and loss and connection. And also, I am a huge nerd and I was getting really into researching computers, kind of like quote unquote how computers think. And that also coincided with the fact that all this news about AI was happening, and we were discussing, and people were discussing technology and robots and all these things. And I, again, like have always been interested in so many things. Um, that was a topic that I was very that I'm still researching a lot. And so it felt also so topical because I was like, oh my gosh, there's this musical that involves truly like robots and the idea of like consciousness, like can robots be conscious, like kind of that the boundary of that. And also it's a musical and also it's Korean American and her name is Claire, and just all of these things where I was like, this is so awesome. And the music is so beautiful. And so I was just like, wow, this is like the perfect show. Like, I want to be a part of the show. I need to be part of the show. And I submitted my tapes, and I never heard back. I didn't hear a single thing.
Yeah,
Um,
it kind of happens sometimes that way in this industry.
yeah, yeah. And it was just so strange because, and not strange, but it was so interesting because I, sent in my tapes. I was like, I feel really good. At the very least, I feel like I'll get a call back, and didn't hear a single thing. And I, I definitely, it's as an actor, and you will feel this. I'm sure you do already, where it's like there are a lot of things that are just out of our control. And so it's like, do the things that are in your control, let go of the things that are out of your control. And I was like mini heartbroken, mini sad because I felt so connected to the material. And because I didn't hear anything back, and I was like, you know what? I have to release it. I have to let it go. Um, and they opened and they, it was amazing. And I was like starting to hear the reviews and all these things. And I was like, oh, I'm so happy for them that like it's going well. And then I was doing teeth and I was so excited to be doing teeth. Um, and teeth was closing. And I had heard like some whispers here and there, where my manager had mentioned that they were maybe thinking about looking for another standby for Claire, but wasn't sure. And I was like, okay, well, either way, I'll audition and we'll see how it goes. Whatever. It's not in my control. And then teeth closed, and I had a feel. I was like, you know what? I have a feeling that after this is closed, I feel the momentum. I feel like good things will happen. Just trying to trust that. And I got a call, um, and I had auditioned for a different show recently as well. And my manager was like, "I have good news and bad news. Bad news is you didn't get that other one, but the good news is I'm looking at an offer for maybe Happy Ending right now as a vacation standby." And I was like, where is this even coming from? What? Oh, okay. Like I was like, oh, so interesting, so hot and cute. Like what? I was pretty shook, and I was still in bed. I was like, I had taken that call in bed. I like just got out of bed, and I was like, what is going on right now? Like, okay, that's exciting. What? It kind of fell in my lap from out of nowhere, and it it was, like it's so crazy how these things happen. And I feel like, at least in my albeit short career thus far, I feel like the craziest things just continue to happen over and over again.
Yeah.
And so I feel very lucky that was the process. It goes to show that it truly, you never know in this industry, honestly.
Yeah.
You never know what could happen. Always the most unexpected things happen. But yeah, I feel very lucky, very, very lucky, for how it happened and how it turned out. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's such a fascinating story because you always hear those things of like some people just never hear back and then maybe they hear back a year after and
Hmm.
you really can't plan anything at this point. And
No.
I mean for you, you did your work, you submitted all your tapes and then, it came back to be prosperous and fruitful at the end of getting cast in the show.
And
Yeah.
I will just say, I'll just throw it in there. What is meant for you shall not pass you. There was another artist who had said that when I was in college, and it really resonated with me. And I have found that to be true,
Mhm.
not just in theater, but in life. Like if something leaves you, let it leave so that the new things can come. And truly trust like what is meant for you shall not pass you.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a 2025.
Yes, 100%. Always kind of
Hmm.
just trust the process in a way. And since this is not your first Broadway show, this is now the second.
That's right.
What is it like returning to Broadway, but this time in a whole, almost entirely Asian cast? We still have Desderon, so King.
Yes, I realized that too. I like put it in my Instagram caption. I was like, "Oh, AAPI cast," and I was like, "Wait, Des, are you Asian?" It's
He
like,
can,
it's fine, it's
maybe he
fine.
can be honorary. I'm sure
Honorary.
he'll learn all the cultural things just from being around everybody. But
Yeah, exactly. That's a great question. I think the more time I spend here, um, I think what it feels different this time is Broadway is truly a community. I was the cast, and we were all just talking about this last night, but like it's it's so small, it's big, it feels big, and it sometimes can be overwhelming, but everyone is so connected.
Mhm.
Everyone knows everyone just from like just from being here and like doing different things. You hear about people, you're friends with different people. It truly is such an interconnected community. And I definitely feel that this time. I felt that in Almost Famous, but it was so short lived that I think we didn't really get to like sit in that. Um, this time, the thing is that after Almost Famous closed, and that's a whole nother story, and I can tell you about that. But I think I felt very lost. I didn't feel like I had that community at that time as well, just because it was also like so close to the pandemic. Everyone was trying to figure things out,
Mhm.
trying to figure out what in the hell was going on, and
Yeah.
um how to deal emotionally with all of the uncertainty. And I think that it's so interesting to me that now that we've also kind of gotten a little bit more into the flow of things, the uncertainty in a way has become so people kind of understand how to like navigate it a little bit better, expect things a little bit more. um, but the community really shows up for each other. I think we really like hold each other and make opportunities with and for each other, and I see that a lot more now. um but it's so interesting that I I loved Almost Famous and it was incredible. I don't like think about it all the time on a daily basis, but then someone will come up and be like, "Oh my god, you were in Almost Famous, I know XYZ person," and I'm like, "Yes, oh my gosh," and it just brings me back to like
Mhm.
2022. It brings me right back to like where I was and who I knew. And and that, I think it's such a special experience,
Mhm.
um that I feel very, very, very grateful for. Yeah, like I think that Broadway as a community and showing up for each other has really just become so crystal clear to me,
Mhm.
through maybe Happy Ending and just like being a part of it. Because now I'm like, oh my gosh, and this person and this person and this person, and like everyone knows everyone, and
Yeah.
it's a really good feeling. It's a really good feeling. And then being Asian on top of that, I think, ah, man, it's so special. It's really fucking special. It's really bleeping special. I don't know.
No, you can say
I
whatever
was
you
like, are we
want.
allowed
No.
to curse?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really fucking special. It's cool because we, and like I mentioned all those amazing shows, Miss Saigon and King and I and Flower Drum Song and all these things, and like we have people in our cast who have been a part of those like original shows or revivals, and know like all the Asian people on Broadway. Like it's a small community,
It
and
is.
it's what an honor to be a part of that.
Mhm.
God, like it makes me emotional even thinking about it, because they truly like walked so we could fucking run, and like thinking about those people who I looked up to, and now they're like coming backstage in the dressing room and like, talking about how great the show is. And I think what is so special about the show, and I think what makes it accessible, is like it's not it takes place in Seoul, you
Mhm.
know they don't have to be Asian robots, right? Like it's not in Korean. It's not like
Yeah.
distinctively like that. It is very universal. It is very much like um it can not be Asian, and yet there are so many subtleties that I feel like are incorporated that still have almost, in my opinion, like an Asian Americanness as well.
Mhm.
Um I think there's just like that feeling in the work, and also like I think that is a unique experience.
Mhm.
Everyone has their own distinct experience, but I I don't know, it's something like intangible. I don't even know if I can describe it, but to me, when I read the script, um it felt Asian American, in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that portrayal feels so truthful to me. And I feel like it feels like we have ownership of this one, kind of.
Oh yeah.
Like I, there's been a lot of art, and there continues to be, right, where it's about Asian people,
Mhm.
or it's about Asian Americanness or whatever. And like this is not about Asian Americanness. It's not even about like being Asian, and yet it feels
Yeah.
distinctly Asian American, and that I think is so special about it, because it taps into the humanness and the
Mhm.
human connection, that I think a lot of times as Asian artists, it feels very much like, oh, like here's me like being Asian, on stage for you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always feel like I'm telling a story and this is human connection and I'm speaking with you and I'm speaking to you and this is a performance, but it's a story. And it feels very much like that in a way that is very special. And again, like I don't say this to like rag on any art, like all art has its own value, but I think that's what makes this show very special and what makes it like really cool as um really cool when I like see people, Asian artists and Asian American artists, come backstage after they've seen the show, and there is a sense of like, wow, that's us up there, that's fucking us up there. And
Yes.
like I fully stand behind it,
Hmm.
like I'm so proud to be like doing this with this cast and this building, um and just the energy of the show, everyone a part of it, everyone, the cast and the dressers and the directors and every single level, the ushers, like the whole building, they're a part of this. That feels very special.
Yeah. No, hearing you speak made me think about like in a way, if they really had wanted to, they could have brought this show to the US and not done it with like almost entirely Asian people. They could have
Mm-hmm.
totally gone a different way. But how lucky are we that we now live in a time where that was actually prioritized and focused on
Right.
in the show because again, it does just create so many layers. It's a universal story, but at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, like it does kind of feel like an Asian story, even though it's not. Like
Right.
and like I
Right.
mean I know that's why like I first kind of piqued my interest and I was like, oh, okay, I think this is like something that would
Mm-hmm.
like fit with me just as a person. And
Mm-hmm.
to see it, I was like,
Right.
it's perfect. I literally met Hannah, another standby after the show, and I was like, Claire, I could totally see myself as Claire, like
Yeah.
vocally, just acting wise, like everything. I was like that. It fits. It just fits, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's kind of fitting for a lot of people in the Asian American community, and to have
Yeah.
a community to just chat with and get to explore. I mean, Marcus and Daniel, who have known each other for 20 years and were in the original cast of Flower Drum Song, like
Yes.
crazy.
Legends. Legends.
And obviously the Broadway community is big or small, big and small, but the Asian Broadway community is even smaller. So
Right. Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
have all of these legends and incredible people being involved with this. I think it's just so special to be uplifting everyone at this time that we really
Mm-hmm.
need it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Hannah, I mean, talked about this all the time of like, it's now we're at like the normalization phase where it's like we're
Yes.
normalizing the representation. They just happen to be in Korea and happen to be Asian looking robots. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. And nothing else is to be
Yeah.
said about it. And
Yes.
how important is that and how beautiful is that we do live in a time where that can be possible. Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
even like a couple years ago, I don't know exactly if the same show would be received the same way. So
Right.
it's
Right.
just so incredible and so important. But let's talk about your put-in a little bit. So
Yeah.
you just had your put-in, which if people don't
Did.
know, it's like your final kind of, well, not final, but it's like the rehearsal where it's like, okay, you're ready to go. If you needed to go on stage, you get to do it with all the costumes. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
not everyone else is in the costumes, but at least you are, and you get to kind of
Yes.
do just the whole show in a rehearsal. So can you
Mm-hmm.
talk about just how your put-in was? I mean, you had some great pictures, family came. How exciting
Yes.
was that?
And it was so awesome. Shout out to our amazing SM. We have an incredible SM team, all of them. Sarah and Plato and Carly and all of our SM team. But Justin Scribner, shout out. He was there from day one, and our AMD Eric, they both were just so kind and generous and helpful through this whole process. Basically, leading up to the put in, they were the ones who were like teaching me the show and um, teaching me all the music and being there for every single one of my rehearsals. So really big shout out to them because I love them so much. But yeah, the put-in was so special. I said, so I'm a vacation standby. Hopefully I stay with the show, longer. Oh, I'm like, get out there, tell them, let them know. But I honestly said from day one, I was like, you know what? I am making peace with the things that I don't have control over. But my grandparents have never seen me in a Broadway show because they didn't get to come see Almost Famous. Um, and I just said, as long as my grandparents get to see me in the show, that's all that matters. And so that was my big thing. Like, and obviously shout out to my mom because I my mom is the best and has been there day one, taking me to all those little child auditions. She is truly she's a homie. She's the OG. Love my
Yeah.
mom. Um, but yeah, so she was also there. A lot of my family was there. My cousins were there, my brother was there, my closest friends were there. And wow, that was a special experience to be able to do this show for them. Again, like I said, it was just like it is also pretty like an appropriate show, like nothing mostly no like rated R or anything. Kind of different from Teeth in that way.
Yes.
But I think because of that, I was like, oh, like it's such a sweet show, and my family is so sweet, and I wanted them to see a sweet show, and it was a very special experience to be doing it, knowing that they were in the audience, and I think I felt very held and prepared. Um, because of our amazing SM team and everyone involved. So grateful to the other standbys who also they were in full costume, full makeup.
They did. Okay, I was
They
wondering
did.
about that. I was totally
Yes.
wondering about
So
that.
yeah, because originally it was just going to be me in costume and makeup, and everyone else was kind of just plain clothes. But I think because of the energy of it all, I think we decided, and also because I was like, I'm so excited that my family's going to come see the show. I don't know if that was involved in the decision making process,
Mm.
but they decided that everyone's going to be in costume, everyone's going to be full makeup. Like the only thing that we didn't have was the orchestra. Although our amazing backstage crew and our SM team, there's a moment with the orchestra in the vicinity of being seen. And the orchestra obviously wasn't there. Our amazing AMD Eric was playing the piano, but they they were like kind of posing as the orchestra in this one
Oh.
moment. So like everyone was laughing. It was so cute, and it was just really really beautiful. So yeah, the put in went magically. I definitely felt quite prepared. Just like in the past of being a swing, you never know what could happen if you could go on. And also, like, I am a weirdo in the sense that I like memorize scripts for fun. Like, don't let this get
I
out.
wish I could do that. I wish I could do that.
It's just like when you're around a show for that long, and I'm sure so many actors feel this way, like when you're around a show and you are hearing it over and over and over again, like you're bound to just memorize a lot of it,
Yeah.
at least for me. And so when I was in Almost Famous, that came in handy because I went on for a track that I did not cover at that time. Crazy things. And I think because I had early on these experiences where it was like, well, you just like learn the show quickly, and that's what you do. And I kind of tried to learn the show as fast as I could. Obviously not rushing it. I was trying to be thorough, but at the same time, I was like, I'm going to spend as much time as I can in the building. I'm going to watch the show as much as I can, get all
Hmm.
that blocking down, memorizing down, so that I don't have to worry about that
Yeah.
um, afterwards. And I felt pretty prepared, and also because of their amazing support and resources, I felt so prepared and so ready to do the put in. And then being able to do it in costume and in light and with all the tech moving and with my amazing castmates and fellow standbys, that was really special.
Yeah, no, that's so. I was like, because I knew I was like, we're not gonna. I'm not gonna interview Claire before she has to put in because that wouldn't make a lot of sense. But
Right,
you know,
right.
after seeing all the pictures and everything, and everyone just being so supportive, I'm like, that is just what Broadway's all about. Is
Hmm.
showing up for. It may not have been like a show where there is paying audience members, but in
Right.
a way, sometimes it's even more special than that of like getting to have the people that you really want to be there,
Yeah.
see you shine and just get to see you as Claire. Claire is Claire.
Miss Claire. Yeah, exactly.
And what is it like joining the Claire, but as you guys have
Oh
been
my God.
saying, you,
I love it.
Anna, and Helen, well, Shell, what has that been like with the three of you?
Oh my gosh. They're the best, my sisters. I don't know if Hannah told you about the squirrels, but
Don't know if this was
we
the thing yet. I have no idea if this was the thing yet, but
okay. So we have a thing called squirrel time where basically we like 30 minutes before the show or 20 minutes before the show, we'll like all go into the Claire and we're like, okay, squirrel time. Like we're all the girlies, we all just go in and we chat and we get to talk. And obviously Shell is on stage for like basically the whole show. So this is our time to like debrief and talk about what we did and like how we're doing. And I just love my girlies. They have been so supportive and kind and amazing since day one. They just kind of like enveloped me and welcomed me and gave me the like full rundown of how things work and all these things. And um, I've been so grateful to them. And it's so fun. We're such funny, silly, smart girlies. And truly, we can all be both. We can all be
yeah,
both.
truly,
We can,
yes.
we can be fun and smart. And it's such a pleasure to just kind of spend a little bit of time before the show and um they have been really helpful and also like whenever we are talking about the show and talking about the character we'll be like, oh, that part is really hard, we gotta use that breast support in that part, or like, oh, like have you ever thought about this specific question about Claire, like what do you think about this, how do you play this, like it's really kind of listening and learning from each other.
Mm,
um and also that like we really are so different, like our performances are different,
mm,
and we talk about this a lot, like we as young Asian American actresses get called in for a lot of similar things, right? And it's interesting too to kind of pull away the curtain of like this veil of competition, because at the end of the day, and Shell and I talk about this a lot, it's like at the end of the day we have so much more in common than we do different, and we also like we have such unique experiences,
mhm.
and being able to share that with other people so openly and so vulnerably is such a beautiful thing because it only builds community,
Yeah.
it doesn't break it. And um, there may be times when people see us as the same because we are both, we're all Asian American actresses and I don't know, but we are also different. And I think like the more time you spend, I think that like if you're ever feeling envious, and this is personally like this is what happens to me, right? Like if you're ever feeling envious, it's almost better to get closer
Mm,
to the thing, because you actually realize the reason why I feel envious is not because it's undeserved. It's
mhm.
because it is deserved. And actually, like, there is a truth there that is connecting us
Yeah.
rather than breaking us, you know? And the Claire, beautiful, beautiful representation of my girlies who get it,
Yeah.
who we can stand by each other and support each other. Um, and it's almost like a volley. Like you get this one and I'll get this other one, and it's like everyone is so kind. And if you open it up to that, if you open it up to community and not competition,
Mm.
that's when like beautiful things happen.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I love that. And just knowing that, there are limited like things that I guess Asian, some Asian people get to go in for in a way. But it's like we're all kind of trying to do the same thing, and none of us are technically in competition with each other. We're just trying to like push the boundaries of what's possible
Hmm.
instead. And so it's like we don't have to be jealous of each other. We can be happy for one another in our own successes, in our own, things that we have going on, because
Yeah.
everyone's journey is going to be different. So there's like no one way to do it at all. And I love, what did you say? It was squirrel. Was it squirrel time? Was that?
Squirrel time. I'm like, I don't know if it's a secret or not, but I love squirrel
I
time.
I love the title because I'm actually like I love squirrels, like
Yes,
legitimately just love squirrels so much.
I
I
love
don't know
it.
if you've seen like when they land, like they look like superheroes. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things that like I've ever seen. I love
Oh
looking
my
at squirrels
gosh.
like anywhere I go. I was like, oh, if I'm in, Boston or whatever, all the squirrels.
Uh-huh.
But I love the fact that it's called squirrel time. That's
Yes.
amazing. For me personally, I'm like so obsessed with that.
Oh
Um,
man, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're getting this satisfaction from the squirrel.
No, and you three are all just like such incredible, inspirations, I'm sure, to like so many people who are seeing the show, and I'm sure young
Oh,
Asian
thank you.
girls, any of the young Asian girls who are coming to see it, like you see that, it's like, oh, everything's possible now. And, that's how I feel, even though obviously I'm older
Oh,
now, but it's like just getting to see the three of you just shine and completely just be yourselves in a project is so beautiful. And I love
yeah.
what you said too about like you all notice different things about her and you can all learn from each other. I think like that's
Hmm.
the biggest thing that comes, like, instead of comparing each other, just
Yeah.
and learn and grow. And if you do feel yourself being a bit envious of someone else, that's just be like, oh, why do they have that? And like, how can I move towards that? Not like, oh, I
Hmm.
don't like this person because they have what I want. It's like
Exactly.
you can still aspire to have and be that, but
Hmm.
there's always reasons for everything. So I think, again, you said a lot of great and very true things.
I'm
And
like, you're making me sound good. I'll
and
take it.
performing the show for your put in, like, did you find yourself having like a moment or a song in the show that you just really love performing?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, I I love How to Not Be Alone. I saw your cover of it. It was so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so
Really, it makes me so happy. I'm like, more people cover the show, you know.
much.
These songs are so special. Um, I think, yeah, How to Not Be Alone. I really love what I learned from people. I think it's a great reflection of, honestly, I think there's a lot to learn from the opposite side. And what I mean by that is like, I think similarly with like what I was talking about with envy, right? I think that a lot of the negative side of looking at a thing actually can bring you closer to what the thing actually is, the positive side of it. Like what I learned from people, I feel like is a reflection of how love sometimes isn't, like, it feels like it's not enough, or like it feels that there is something disingenuous about it, because like the lyrics are right, like it goes from picture picture his eyes when he listens and laughs, picture her joy when she holds his hand, and then it goes from there to then picture the light fading out of his eyes, picture her hand falling out of his, right? Like there's this great opposition. And there's also a line that we talk about a lot, which is, um he was still standing next to her, but they were alone.
Yeah.
And I think there's a dichotomy there, because she's saying this is what people do,
Hmm.
right? Like, and we can't trust them. We can't trust them because they're disingenuous in this way. There is, um, a fleetingness and impermanence to them loving, right?
Hmm.
And it actually ends up leading to loss. It actually ends up leading to heartbreak. And that's why we shouldn't do it, right? And I think it just captures what actually the show is, one of the things that the show is about, which is that like loss actually shows us love, right? The
Hmm.
negative shows us the positive. It's a reflection of something deeper. Um, like we were talking about envy, right? A lot of times, envy is actually a signal to ourselves of like, there's something that I want to do that I'm not doing right now or I'm not getting right now.
Hmm.
And then being like able to focus on that thing is actually where the answers lie, where you're like, oh, well, actually, I'm envious of them because they maybe are they're doing this cool project and I want to be doing those cool projects. It's like,
Yeah.
great. So now we know I
Yeah.
want to be doing a project. Let's work towards that.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with how it the show deals with the topic of love, which is like love is this strange thing. There are no answers. Sometimes you can love someone and they go away and they leave you and they betray you, but the love is still there.
Yeah.
Or in this show, right? Like sometimes love happens and it's not even supposed to be possible that it happens and still yet it does.
Yeah.
When you like this in the show, it says when you're in love, you are the loneliest. What? Like these things logically don't make sense.
Yeah.
And yet that tension leads us to the answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? That leads us to the art. That leads us to why love is so special and intangible and something we can't describe.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what I love about the story of these robots is like they're learning this too in the same way that humans learn this, I think.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. No, and it's like they have the learned experience that they gather from other people. Um, and so like they have an idea of what they think maybe love is. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
the whole like scene of you know, I forget their names, but the
Yeah.
projection characters. Like
Oh yes,
yeah,
Jiyeon.
so
Yeah.
or what is it? What are the two names?
Juan and
Suhan,
Jiyeon,
yeah, Suhan and Jia. Yes, I was like, I know what it is. What is it?
played by Arden Cho and Young Manzino.
Yes.
Shout out.
So
Love them.
iconic. But they have that whole scene of like asking Claire if things are love. And
Yeah.
like they're just asking her and she's like, that's the like all the technical aspects of it.
Yeah.
But it's like there's so many definitions of what love can be. And like you were saying in when you're in love, they say like you're the loneliest, and then they say like you're never satisfied.
Hmm.
And just like so many things that I'm like, oh my God, this is deep and so
Yeah.
just like full of so much gravity to it. And
Yeah.
it's so heavy when you're holding it and it sounds so sweet. And
Hmm.
it's like it is so much more than that. And just really observing like what love is. And things could be going perfectly and then someday they could leave. It's just like
Yeah.
so interesting. And then how also we cope at the
Yeah.
end is how we cope with loss and if it's worth it or if we block it out. It's
Mm.
just it's difficult because it's so real.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's like it's challenging. It's dark and yet it's so light. And
Yeah.
um I think that's what this show it feels like chiaroscuro, like there's like the light and the dark. I feel like this show really balances that
Yeah.
because it never gets too sad, like obviously we can be sad, but especially like as an actor in the show, we talk about this a lot that like we can't let it be sad
Mhm.
because we're robots and a lot of times with Claire, and this is like a personality thing, that she's like, this is how it is. It's very matter of fact.
Yeah.
But there are moments in the show where she goes from being matter of fact to then being like, whoa, this is going to be hard,
Yeah.
and I think that um we try in a lot of ways not to sit in the like the depth of not the depth but like the sadness in that only because we want the audience to feel that,
Mhm.
and I think it's so smart of the direction um, within the show that we we don't portray being sad or feeling the weight of it because then the audience can feel that if we are present and
Yeah.
honest about the story will do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think when it comes to the show, it's all about like Claire at first, she's like trying to prevent all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you have to promise, like, you can't fall in love with me.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
like the whole thing of like, oh, okay, that you kind of know in your head, like when you're watching, you're like, oh, okay, this isn't gonna end the way she
Right.
thinks it's gonna end.
Right.
But
Right.
it's going on that journey with them. And
Mhm.
it's so sad, but it's like seeing so much beauty within the sadness.
Mhm.
And even the ending, you're like, there's hope in the ending too. And
Yeah.
you just feel like, oh, maybe it could happen again. You never know.
Yeah,
And like
right.
you never really have a definitive answer of what's happening because also like I know at least I remember reading like in the Korean production it was left up to the Claires. I know like in
Mhm.
direction for the Broadway one it's like there is a specific direction but at the same time like you can always think it up in your brain.
Right, right.
As
That's
the
true.
actor, it's the actor's choice sometimes.
Right.
And so it is such just a I mean, people have described it so much as a Pixar movie of a Broadway show, and I'm like, that's
Mhm.
the perfect way to say it because
Yeah.
it knows how to really make you feel so good, but also so sad at the same time,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it's just so beautiful. And
Right.
so which one is your favorite Claire solo? Because she has like three major,
Oh
songs in
goodness.
the show, and they're
Yeah.
all so different but beautiful.
That's a good question. I did talk a lot about what I learned from people. How to not be alone, I think, is a quiet hit, a
Hmm.
quiet, banger. I think that it's so I think what I love about it is like it really deconstructs what it is, like what not being alone is, what being together is, in the early stages of like getting to know someone and understanding what love, could be like this the step of it. Um and I think that she's I talked about this with our AMD Eric, but he was like, there's a moment where she says, but I'm improving. Like she's saying all these things where it's like, it's hard to do this. And it's hard to let somebody, it's not so hard to let somebody in, but it's hard to sometimes deal with like a person's shit, like of everyone has their own little quirks and own little things. And sometimes like it's hard I'm sure like living with a person is difficult in that way because you
Yeah.
get to know them so well in that way. But that's the beautiful part of like connecting with a person in a deep way is that you get to know their quirks and the things that they do, and you become bonded, you become synced in that way.
Mhm.
And we would talk about like there's a point in the song that almost she's telling herself like, oh, takane, like in Korean, meaning like, oh, like I can be kind to, right, like I'm improving, I'm getting better,
Mhm.
like I'm learning this as it goes. And I think the song is reflective of a robot and a very
Yeah.
smart one, learning this about like not humans, but about the process of like getting to know someone and being with a person for a long time, and
Yeah.
which is love,
Yeah. No,
in
I
its
mean,
own
it's,
way.
it's about knowing all the little things that, maybe can be annoying to some people, but it's like annoying and appreciating those things, I think is the deepest form of love that, people can do is when you just see someone for all that they are and accept them for it.
Right.
And I mean, literally, I think almost every single cast member has said that that's like their favorite song.
Oh my
At least
gosh.
that I've talked to. It's just
Oh
such like an
gosh.
important song that is so unexpected because like
Hmm.
I don't think I heard the song because I listened to all the Korean versions and stuff online.
Hmm.
I was like, I'm gonna do it just to like hear all of this music, but I don't think I listened to that song until I saw the show and I'd heard stuff about it from the all the cast and stuff and talking about it and then seeing it for the first time. I was like, this is it. Like this is one of
Yeah.
the best musical theater like songs ballads that we've had
Oh
recently, and
yeah.
like. Man, when that cast recording comes out and everyone gets to hear it,
Girl, you and I both. You and I both. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Yeah.
it'll definitely be like on my Spotify Wrapped. Like I know it. I just know it.
Oh yes. With these voices, girl, it's gonna be on all the time. All the time.
And like you're in the show and you love it just as
Yeah, exactly. That's
yeah.
like being in a show that I just love it so much.
Yeah. No, it's so special. And then okay, how is it working with the diva herself, Hwabun?
Oh my God. Great question. Hwabun, I think is very sweet. Um, Hwabun sometimes gets a bad rep because he's in the spotlight a lot and like he enjoys it. He's good at it. He is very good at it, but I think people don't know that he also has a soft side.
Mm.
He's very sweet. He shows up for the people who he really cares about.
Mhm.
Um, I'm like, maybe he doesn't care. Like he's just, he has to be selective with his time because he's a
True.
big celebrity. And so a lot of times people will be like, oh, he's such a diva. Like he didn't show up to my party, whatever. But like he's busy and he's got a lot on his plate too. There's a lot of pressure that goes with it. Those leaves don't, they can't look good just like naturally. They have to, I mean, they do. I love you, Haboon. But, he has to get his touch up. He needs to, he goes to his spa days. Like there's a lot that goes into the beauty.
Yeah.
And I think he's a really, really, really sweet plant. And he likes to be babied. He just doesn't always like to show it.
Mhm. No, Habu, the so-called diva.
Right,
It's just
right.
such an iconic part of the show. You
He's
can't have a
fierce.
maybe happy ending without Habu.
It's
So
so true. It's so
such
true.
such a star. And like, what do you hope audiences learn from maybe happy ending?
Oh my gosh. Good question. Um, I think that ultimately it's about connection and love, whatever that is. But definitely like it's a non-human musical that I think is probably one of the most human things. It's exploring the human experience and what it is to fall in love, what it is to um, learn things about yourself that you didn't fully expect. Um, it is about like mortality, life and
Mm,
death, but it doesn't feel like it's like always going to be so heavy. It's a journey, and I hope people walk away from it just being delighted and having obviously like an enjoyable experience, but also being able to think about their own lives of like, how much have I loved and how do I show up in the most human ways
mm,
for the people that I care about, and hopefully to like spend your time with the people who you care about and doing the things that um, chasing love and not fear.
mm, mhm.
Um, and there's so much. I'm like, there's so much from the show that I could say.
Oh man, I
Uh,
know.
but yeah, I'm like trying to be less broad about it. Um, I think, yeah, a lot of it is about connection and allowing yourself to be loved as well, to love and be loved,
Mhm.
even in unexpected places and
Yeah.
unexpected people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's again, there's so many messages in the show that can be taken in so many different ways, but it's like that's what you have to ponder after seeing the show.
Hmm. Exactly.
Oh, you leave
Exactly.
and you're like, oh my God, what just happened? And then you have to
Right. I'm
like,
like, if my answer was too broad for you, come see the show so you can have your own thoughts as well.
yes,
And
exactly.
the music is just, I mean, to die for.
Oh my
It's
God.
so beautiful.
A
And
dream.
as a jazz head myself, jazz cat.
Oh my God. Wait, that's actually because I go to Boco, and so Berkeley, like, what's it called? Mascot is Mingus the jazz cat.
Charles Mingus. Oh God. Oh my God. You don't know how much I love that. That
Yeah.
yeah, I love jazz. And so like this show, there is so much jazz in it. And like it's also the style of music. It's such a beautiful style that is not it's a mix of so many different things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, definitely. No, I mean, I'm doing like a jazz unit right now in one of my classes where we have to like do a jazz standard, and so I'm like thinking about all these things, and I'm like,
Oh,
it's like similar vibes for some of the things to like, Why Love or Sentimental Person. It's just,
Yeah.
and even those songs are so like loaded with questions, but uh,
Right.
it's
Right.
just so fun to watch and to listen to. Obviously, Dez's voice is out of this world,
Right.
but
It
it's
is. It is.
fun.
I'm like, hate to admit it, but it is. No, I love him.
Yeah, no, what an icon. But okay, for you, what is it like being the first Korean Claire on Broadway?
Oh my God, that's crazy. That is crazy. Um,
I mean, I think you were the first Korean actress to be either Oliver or Claire. I think you're,
yes.
'cause-
Yes, that is true.
yeah.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I mean, I will just dish and say Chun Mi-do was originated this role in Korea. And it was so crazy. This is why I feel like it's such like kismet for
Uh,
all of this because I love Chun Mi-do. I've watched her in a couple of dramas, and I didn't know that she had been a very famous musical actress.
yeah.
I didn't know that. I just like loved her acting on screen. And my mom was doing the research when I was like, oh, I love Chun Mi-do and whatever. She was like, oh yeah, like she's been in all these musicals, yada yada yada. And then when I was like looking up this show originally when I first read the script, I was like, oh my God, Chun Mi-do originated this role. Like this is so crazy. And
Yeah.
she's even in the show. Like there's a part where
Yeah, I was just
she
gonna
gets
say
called.
that.
And so it's a fun little Easter egg. But I mean, she's an icon. She's like everything I want to be. And so that is really special to like even have a little thread like that we are doing a similar thing. Um, but it's really special, man. It's special. As I said, it's like this is not about being Asian or anything or being Korean, but the fact that I'm in a show, damn, this is crazy. I'm just like realizing this now, but it's like the fact that I'm in a Broadway show that takes place in Seoul and is like really the first one I think that like takes place in Korea,
Yeah, because I mean,
right?
even K-pop was like based in the US.
Right, that's true. That's
Yeah,
true. Well, yeah, I guess
yeah.
K-pop is is like much more Korean, distinctly Korean in that way. But I guess like because the show, as I said, like I love thinking about technology, and so it's like the robot aspect of it, and like the Korean aspect of it, and the style of music, and her name is Claire, and like being,
Yeah.
I was like being a Korean Claire like on Broadway. That just feels so crazy to me,
Mhm.
like very very crazy, um, very surreal, and I mean, it helps that it's an amazing show. But I mean, for all my Korean girlies out there too, like, I think that I just feel so grateful to be a part of something that is bigger than itself. And like, if I was a kid and I saw, myself being a Korean Claire on Broadway, like that kind of thing, like
Yeah.
that really does make a difference. It's like our Hamilton moment, it's like
Yes.
looking at that and we forget it once we get older, but looking at it and realizing that you're actually creating a doorway for people is really it's really cool. Um, and shout out to my family. My mom's side also lives in Korea. My dad's side we're all from Korea and grew up mostly preserving the language. They would debate not, but I'm like I'm conversational in Korean. I'm not fluent, but
You know what? Your Korean is probably better than my Chinese because my Chinese
I'm like
sucks really
Duolingo will
bad.
have to weigh in on that. The
Literally,
Duolingo bird.
I have my streak like going on
Right.
like 100 something days. I'm like,
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. My grandma was the one who was like, yeah, it's fascinating how this happens, um, that you're like on Broadway in a show that literally takes place in Korea, like, and your name is Claire. Like, what's going on?
yeah.
Malfunctioning.
Um, yeah.
It's it's fucking crazy. It's crazy, but I I feel like the luckiest person. Yeah.
No, I think it's just a testament that like all of this stuff was meant to be, and like for you to be in the show. And like you said, it's this is gonna be a lot of people's like the Hamilton, at least for the click in their brain of being like, oh, I can do that. But it's a lot more specific than even Hamilton was. Like
Exactly.
Hamilton, we mostly saw like Philip Soo, and we're like, oh, okay, this is kind
Right.
of like fun and cool, and like some of the ensemble
Right.
members. But this is like, oh, she's leading the show, and she's, Asian, and she's just being herself. Um,
Right.
and how important that is.
And it's almost like, and just thinking about in terms of levels and the depth that we go into. And these are all like obviously crude examples that are just like coming into my head. There's so many more. But right when I was like a kid, I saw Lisa Longa,
Mm,
videos of her singing in Miss Saigon and being like, wow, like that's oh, a person who kind of looks like me, who's like on this stage doing this thing that I didn't even know was possible. And then going from there to like Philippa Sue and Hamilton, who's like now being a part of this show that is like very in the forefront at the time, in the forefront of like music and pop culture and theater. And now coming to like doing maybe Happy Ending, where we are in like a more normalization phase of like it's not about you know, being Asian, but
mm,
it is like an Asian American show. There are definitely elements to it. And that kind of advancement in the representation, in the expansion of the canon of like what is possible, is really special. And it shows that all of um, those stepping stones were necessary and were so important. All, like Flower Drum Song and South Pacific and all of these other shows that featured Asian people, that at the time really had to be about like being Asian
yeah,
or were about Asian people.
yeah.
And like a lot of times we like nowadays, because we are not like past that, but we've advanced in a way. And I think that a lot of times people are like, oh, and I did this too. I'd be like, oh, like I it's so explicitly about being Asian, and like like it's it's not good enough in our standards or whatever. But it's like, but those were stepping stones. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like again, they walked so we could run. Like there's so many people who were involved in even getting us in the room that like I don't know, I think that shows the power of community and the power of advocacy and fighting a fight that like you might not be part of that, of the abundance of like what grows from that, but you are planting those seeds,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so important.
Yeah, no, and I mean, even just going back to what you were saying about like these were the stepping stones, without the King and I and Flower Drum Song, there would not have been shows like Allegiance or like K-pop or Here
Exactly.
Lies Love. And then I'm sure,
Exactly.
like maybe Happy Ending would not be here with all of those different layers that had to be here before we were able to get to where we are currently. And even just with Asian visibility and having a mostly almost entirely Asian cast, it's just that's important to have. And like we've
Mhm.
had maybe one or two like shows every year or so since like at least the pandemic came out, but it's like we are seeing again like it's improving. Like Claire said, we're improving
Right.
on what's going on. We obviously have leagues to go, lots to
Right.
go,
Right.
but
Exactly.
it's like we're all learning and we are getting better in a way,
Hmm.
and so there's always going to be hope. Where it might seem bleak at times, but it's just this show is especially a message of like, hey, things are kind of changing a little bit. So like keep making
Right.
sure that we keep going on this ride so that we can keep the momentum going and preserve and allow people to be seen and see themselves on stage and how
Mhm.
important that is. And so for you to kind of wrap it up a little bit, what does representation mean to you?
Oh gosh. Um, I guess following from, what we were just talking about, I think it's changed, I think that when I was younger, representation, I think a lot of what I felt was important was like representation of like, oh well, I have to, um, be like the one Asian person in the room and like make a good impact, um, and also visibility, like right, we said visibility of like, well, I want to, be an example for like that one person in the audience. And I think now in a lot of good ways, right? Like the representation game has changed with K-pop and the rise of, like people loving Korean culture and Asian culture in general, and also the internet, right? Like that has changed so much. And so like now there are so many more people on our screens, like, Asian people that make videos and make, music and all these things. And so like that has broken that kind of barrier. But
Mhm.
I guess in terms of my personal where I am positioned in this specific industry in theater, I think it's very much of um, planting the seeds for the future,
Mhm.
um, and being other people can see a part of themselves and feel empowered by that, for whatever that means. Um, whether that empowers you to take a class or go to an audition or just like try something new in your life, like whatever that means. You don't need to be an artist. Um, but right, it expands the realms of what we think is possible. And I think that that truly is what representation is, because you can feel represented by someone who doesn't look like you, right?
Very
You can
true.
feel right, like we always talk about, it's like, oh my god, I feel so represented in this like random TV show by this random character, right? It's just like
Yeah.
it's empowering you in some way, shape, or form to know that you're not alone, that there's someone out there who is just like you.
Yeah.
And especially in a place where like in an industry that like is not all Asian, not all Asian American. You don't see a lot of people who look like you. The physical representation is important also because it is a visible art. It's a very visible thing.
Yeah.
I think that the fact of looking like a person is important because it's an embodiment of you. Um, but yeah, I think that it's like being someone who people can connect to and feel empowered by.
Mhm. Well, that's beautiful. And yeah, like you said, you don't even have to necessarily look like the person that you feel represented in. It's just about sharing all these human stories, whether they be from an Asian face or not. It's like, how can we continue to just tell important stories that make a difference in people's lives and so that they can see themselves, whether they're Asian or not? And how important that is to just keep focusing on. But anyway, Claire, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to people listening?
Oh my gosh. Come see Maybe Happy Ending. Shout out to all of the fans. Love you all so much.
All the
It's
fireflies.
all the fireflies. I mean, it's such a beautiful like community of fans and lovers of the show. They have I literally have a hat. I'm gonna shout out. They gave us these little hats,
Oh my
this
gosh.
cute little
Yes.
hat with like Hwaboon on it.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I mean, I just love how people are loving the show because I also love the show. And um, just keep getting out there, like create your covers, build the community because I think that this is a community worth building.
Mm.
And thank you for all the support thus far. Thank you to everyone who like knows who I am. Like that's pretty crazy. Thanks for reaching out. Thank you,
Of
Ashley.
course.
This was so fun, and I love chatting with smart, wonderful people like yourself.
Oh,
So
thank
thanks
you,
for
thank
having me
you.
on.
No, this has been such a blessing just to get to talk to you, kind of pick your brain about all the things and just talk about these things that are so important to us as, Asian performers and just people in general, as just all the things that make us who we are. So thank you, Claire. And everyone
Absolutely.
listening, please go see Maybe Happy Ending. And make sure to follow Claire on all the social media stuff. I'll tag her, don't worry. And thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
You've been listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.